Welcome. My name is Beth Green, otherwise known as Granny Rocks.
And my name is James Maynard, otherwise known as Sweet Baby James. Welcome to Lighting the Way, Granny Raps and Rocks. I'm handling the chat. Please chat with us, and Beth will reply to you in person.
If you're here live. Otherwise, I will reply to you online. So don't hesitate to leave your comments. So tonight, I am going to talk about something that all of us experience, and maybe more and more. And it's loss. Last week I was talking about changing the conversation to climate change, and I'm sure you've noticed that the whole conversation this past week has been about climate change in the news, because it's becoming so extreme that even we can't deny it anymore. But today I just want to talk about dealing with losses of all kinds. None of us likes loss if it's something that we love. It can be loss of a beautiful home, a beautiful state, a future, a loved one, illusions, money, jobs,
Capacities as you age.
capacities. I mean, it seems like, especially as you age, as we are, as James is talking about, seems like there's one loss after another. Friends, and we don't like it. We're upset by it, and we often try to avoid it, or we try to fight it. Sometimes we accept it, and I'm saying that to be truly free and to transcend the loss, we need to embrace it. And I want to talk about exactly what I mean. And this is not some kind of airy-fairy thing.
Ah, yes, we have a comment already. Blanquita says, hello, Beth and James, and sends 2 hearts of love. Muchas gracias, Blanquita.
Gracias, Blanquita.
And Catalina says hi and sends a heart of love.
Hi, back to you, Catalina.
Yeah, back at you.
So tonight, I'm talking about loss, and looks like we have another.
Oh, and Tracy says hello and sends caring. Thank you, Tracy.
Okay.
Oh, and Karen says, hi, Beth and James. Great topic.
Oh, thank you, Karen. Thank you, Elizabeth.
And Elizabeth
Thank
says hello,
you.
sends a heart of love and caring.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Catalina.
And
Thank you,
Lizzie.
Blanquita. I mentioned her. So anyway, thank you all, and welcome, welcome. So this is a painful topic, right? So I started thinking about, I've been thinking about this topic for a while tonight, because that's the topic that I was guided to offer tonight. And I'm thinking about loss a lot because of climate change. And not only climate change, but that's a big loss. You know, it's like, oh my God, this is not the same place where we grew up, or so many times we've enjoyed being in a certain place and then it burnt down to the ground. I mean, that was a loss that we experienced together, the loss of our home. And it wasn't that our house burned down, but that everybody's house burned down for 20 to 30 miles. And as a result of that, even though our
an
house...
entire town burned down.
An entire
Several
town.
entire
Several,
towns turned
yes.
down. Todd says, hi, Beth and James. Yes, great topic.
Thank you.
Thank you, Todd.
So what we lost was our support system, so that we could no longer stay where we lived because there was nobody to help us at our age. I mean, there was nothing but devastation for miles and miles, and there was nobody living there anymore.
Right.
And so that was the huge impact of climate change on our lives because it was forest fires. But anyway, I started to think, and I don't know why I'm starting here, but I'm going to talk to you about what's in my heart tonight, is the first major loss that I am aware of in my life. Major loss, not, my teacher didn't let me into the dollhouse, was my father. When I was 6 years old, my father had a nervous breakdown. He was always kind of a nervous guy, but he had a nervous breakdown and ended up in the psych unit of a hospital. And he was there for a few weeks. And my brother and I, my brother was 3 years older than me, we went to the hospital, but they wouldn't let us in. Oh, yeah, they were so enlightened in those days, right? And so we stood outside and looked up, and we were told that my father was up there, and we didn't even see him. And then finally, and my recollection is, and I have a terrible memory, was that it was Valentine's Day. My father came home, and he just wasn't the same. And because he wasn't the same, my mother wasn't the same, because suddenly she had all the stress. My father couldn't make money, and she wasn't working for money. She was, a housewife. And everything changed, just like boom. Now, I'm sure that that he was impacted by something that was led up to that, what they called a nervous breakdown. But I had that sudden loss in my life, and I didn't really have a father in the sense that I had had before, because he was no longer confident, and he was more tentative and kind of more of childlike himself. So, did I ever deny it, accept it? I couldn't avoid it. It happened. I couldn't deny it. It happened. I probably accepted it, which meant that I just went numb. Right? I just went numb. I accepted it like there was nothing I could do about it. And I tried to cope. Probably not that well. And now I want to talk about a second loss that I had many, many losses in between.
By the way, we have another comment. Amy says, "Thank you so much for this topic, Beth. Love to you both, James and Beth." And she sends a couple of hearts of love.
Thank you,
so
Amy.
much.
Thank
Amy.
you. Yes, we all relate to this, don't we? So, some of us have losses because a sibling is born, and suddenly we're not the baby anymore, or we're not the favorite child, or we're not the only girl, or, it happens a lot. And I always had poor health my whole life since I was born, because I was born with a hereditary condition. But when I was 15 years old, I became severely ill, and I became chronically severely ill for the rest of my life. I was 15 years old, and let me tell you, that was a loss. And that was why I had to stop playing the piano. I didn't play the piano for, I don't know, like almost 60 years, until higher consciousness guided me to improvise. I tried to go back. See, lots of times when we have a loss, we try to go back, but most of the time we can't move forward. We can't move backward. I couldn't go back.
Well, trying to go back keeps you from moving forward.
Exactly. I tried to go back, and I couldn't. And it was very upsetting to me to have my whole life before me and essentially lose it, because I wasn't even remotely normal anymore. I had been pretty bad before, but this was really bad. It wasn't just the piano that I lost. I was in bed or a chair for a year and a half, but it wasn't just that. It was that I never recovered my health, and I had to face a life of illness. So I'm talking to you very personally right now. I want you to know, and I mean, I've had, plenty of other losses, just like you have.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very hard to take, and I know that I was severely impacted by every one of those losses. Losses of dreams of what I was going to be and what I was going to do, not just because of illness. Loss of the dream that I was going to save the world. Oh yeah, that one fell hard. Anyway, so I know the ins and outs of our reactions to loss. You know, we try to avoid loss at all costs. Like, oh, I think my husband is getting ready to leave me, so then I start baking his favorite cookies, right?
Amy says, you had to give up playing classical piano music, right?
Absolutely. And I couldn't play any music from the age of 15 until I was 73 and I started to improvise because I was playing classical music. I couldn't read the page because of my eyesight, but also I couldn't play it because of my body. And I found that improvisation was something that I could do and I could develop. But that was a lot of years that I lost that connection with music, and I tried to compose through the computer because I could not move my fingers on the keyboard. And I still have a lot of trouble physically playing music. But anyway, I want to go back to what we do, what I did. I would try to avoid loss. So I was talking about how we don't want to think it's going to happen. We're going to try to stop it from happening. A friend of ours is going to move away. And we start crying and saying to our parents, no, I want to move too. Or I don't want you to move. Or, and that friend has no power to stay. So, we try to avoid the loss if we possibly can. And then when that fails, we can say, well, I didn't like her anyway. Or him. Like, oh yeah, my husband left me. Well, he was an ass anyway, or something, right? So in a way, I'm denying the loss by denying the value of the thing that I lost. Well, who wanted that anyway, right? Now, some of us think that the solution is to accept loss. Well, in a sense, that's true. But I want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, that could sound like resignation.
Exactly. I accepted my loss of my health. I did. I mean, I accepted it. There wasn't anything I could do about it. I just had to keep going, right? But accepting, now think about the word to accept. Doesn't that give you a feeling of taking something in?
Yes.
I accept your invitation.
But it also sounds like yes.
Well,
I'm saying yes to it. I accept it.
Well, I don't think so, James. I don't think it's a way of saying yes. It's like, I can't help this. So there's always a little bit of a resentment sticking in there. And there is that sense that I want to talk about of taking it into myself. I accept this as my future, as my lot. It's you said it before. It feels kind of like resignation. And so then you say, well, no, real acceptance isn't like that. Real acceptance is when you make peace with it. Not to my way of thinking. I am going to suggest an alternative to acceptance, and that is embracing. Now, what's the difference between acceptance and embracing, and why should we do that? Why is that any better? I mean, you could say, well, embracing is you're taking it in. No, that's not what I mean. when I say embracing, I mean I get it. I'm going to make this be something better. I'm going to make something with this. I'm going to go towards it. See, acceptance has a feeling of passivity.
Mhm.
You know, it's like, oh, this is happening and I accept climate change. Like, okay, it's happening. There's nothing I can do about it. Now, if we are going to embrace climate change, that means we're saying, yeah, we know it's here. It's our own damn fault. And we're going to learn something from this, or we're going to move into the future with it. So, what can we do? There is an active energy to me about embracing it. Now, you may say, no, I don't think that's the right word. I don't care what you think is the right word or the wrong word. I'd like you to get the concept of what I'm saying. You can put any label on it that you want, but it's to say, this is real. This is happening. I need to do something with this. I am walking towards it. I haven't given up my power. I have empowering myself to embrace this. And that makes all the difference.
How does that apply to losing a person, a loved one in your life?
It means you grieve. And by the way, I am not saying that you shouldn't grieve. Not at all. Of course we should grieve. We should go all through all stages of grief or whatever. But when we embrace it, we say, okay, now what am I going to make of my life? Like, how can I go towards this? How can I see, and sounds terrible, how can I see or find an upside in this? Something I can connect to and do something with.
Oh, Amy has a comment. I had that same pair of images, accepting being something like allowing something to just sit in your lap, whereas embracing being reaching out to hold and move with it.
Excellent, Amy. Thank you. You've really gotten.
You got it.
You got it. You got what I'm trying to say. See, I want to move forward in my life. Yes, I've had losses. I'm going to have more losses. Tonight, James went out to get some food for us for dinner before the show. We have a little ritual on Wednesday nights. He gets this cheap dinner, and we eat it. And that makes life a little bit easier for both of us on the Wednesday because we have a group afterwards and there's a lot of work to do. And as I was sitting here waiting for him, I was actually setting the table, which I never do. I thought, where is this energy coming from? Setting the table means I put down 2 plates and 2 forks. No,
Yeah.
So that was a lot for me because I usually don't do hardly anything. And I heard wah, 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 wah. I heard a siren. And I thought, God damn, did James get into an accident? And I thought, my God, what a loss that would be if I lost James. And I sat there and waited for this guy to get home to make sure he was still alive. And I know what it would be like if I lost James. I probably would have some difficulty going on. I wouldn't know what I was going to do with myself. I didn't know who was going to take care of myself, but I was going to miss him. But I have to believe. See, that's what really I was thinking about. I have to believe that if I am still meant to be alive after him and I don't get knocked over in the same accident, that there's something, a future that I have to move towards, even if I don't like that future. I had a meditation this morning where I thought about the road, that 30 miles of road that James and I used to drive up to get to our home that was up in the forest.
It was so beautiful, it was declared by the state to be a scenic byway.
That's right. And we had an hour's drive to get home from the closest part, but it was so beautiful that you could just like enjoy every minute. And after you got out of town, and then after the fire, I couldn't even look. There was, I mean, there was nothing there. There
Just
was
a lot of burnt trees and burnt buildings.
burnt trees, burnt buildings, burnt mountains, and there was um, exactly. I mean, some places, a lot of them, all that was left was the fireplace. You know, you would
Right.
drive up, and it was like you were in a war zone, and I couldn't look at it. That was my denial. See, I couldn't look at it and I was avoiding it and I didn't want to see it and I wanted to find another way to get there. Oh, let's go over the mountain pass and go,
Take
uh,
twice as long.
yeah, well, and go shop somewhere else where we can't get to in the winter. Anyway, anything but face that, right? And today, interestingly enough, in the morning, I was given a meditation that I was at the river and there were no trees, which is exactly what happened. The river was still there, but the trees were gone. And I meditated on that hideous image that I didn't like. And and that's when I realized, okay, what was left was the river. And if I wanted to be at the river, I would have to face the fact that there were no trees.
Hmm.
And that was a horrifying thought in my mind because I love trees. Well, in the end, we can't move anyway because we're too old to be traveling that far. And we
100
couldn't.
mile and 100 hour, I'm sorry,
100
100-mile round trip just to get groceries.
Right. And so it was a little bit much for us at our age, and we're almost 80. But I also saw that and I said, I have to embrace that that is what is left. And I thought of that sonnet by William Shakespeare. Let us not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments, which means let's not focus on the problems between two people who really care about each other. And then it said, love is not love that alters when it alteration finds. In other words, if I can't love that river with the burnt trees, then I don't love that river. And I was so moved. I immediately went out and tried to see if we could buy some burnt land somewhere, and we couldn't even afford that. You know, it's just, I mean, what can I say? We can't do that, and we're supposed to be where we are, but that is moving forward. See, if I embrace the change, then I say, I am here. The universe has brought me to this place, and I embrace it, and I am going to make the best I can of this place and this life that the universe is giving me, because I am not going to give up in defeat. I'm not going to fight it. I'm not going to be defeated by it. I'm not going to accept it. I'm going to embrace it, and we are going to have a life here in where we live now. And James and I are both determined to do that. So I'm just using this as an example.
And a further extension of that example is that we renamed our water feature, our waterfalls, after that river.
A water
which
feature we put in the backyard.
Oh yeah, it's multiple waterfalls.
Right.
And by doing so, we're embracing the identity of that river and honoring it in our own waterfalls and moving forward with this as a source of energy, of chi, of negative ions, and happily having that as our now present
So I embrace it. I embrace the life that I have. If I'm supposed to go back to a burnt river, I'll find out. In the meantime, I'm going to go for what I've got. And when I think about global warming, it just terrifies me, it makes me grieve terribly. But instead, I want to embrace that it is happening and be inspired to keep sharing with people my view that we need to change the conversation and have people face this reality like we can deny it anymore and see what we can do with it. Like maybe things are bad enough that we're going to wake up out of our denial and start looking at how our universe, our world, as we've co-created it, works on ego, on short-term thinking, on selfish thinking. Everything is me, 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 not looking at consequences. I want to embrace this terrible experience and try to support consciousness for us to recognize that we need to be way more aware of everything we do at every moment, not just about climate change, but the way we relate to one another and everything else. And that would be embracing it as far as I'm concerned. So with that, I want to remind you to like and love this show and share this program with other people. If you're not sharing it, and you can, then you are not embracing the possibility to share this message with others. We always have choices about what we're going to do. And please like it and love it and comment and come back tomorrow night for Magical Improvs with Beth Green, where I play the piano, I improvise on the piano, and James sings, and he improvises with his voice, and we greet you, and we love our audience. We always do. So thank you for coming tonight, and please spread the word about Lighting the Way, Granny Raps and Rocks.
Great to have you with us. Hope to see you again.
Bye-bye.